All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to Sproles and Steele, the podcast. I don't know if that will be the actual title, but this is a new year of college football. We're very excited to be back, and this is the first video of this channel. We've done this podcast before. It was on a different channel, but that channel was dedicated to poker, and so this channel is definitely going to be only dedicated to pretty much college football. We later in the year might throw in like some NFL podcasts when there's a break in college football. We might randomly throw in like some basketball stuff at some point, but this podcast will be specifically to talk about college football and sports betting when that time of the year rolls around. But we are in the off season right now, and so in this week's episode, we're going to be previewing the Big 12. We're also going to be previewing the other conference, the Pac-12, and we'll give you guys like some winners, some surprise teams, maybe some teams that we think are overrated. Kind of talk about maybe some specific teams in more depth. Before we get into the actual podcast, if you guys haven't seen our podcast before, which probably nobody has, my name's Nick, this is Addison, and then Steele, and then our fourth member is Corey from Denver, but Corey cannot be here with us tonight as we are in Columbus, Ohio. So we will have I would say guests probably most weeks. We'll have like call-in guests. We might have some in-person, live in-studio guests, if you would call this a studio. This is my basement. So I guess if we want to get into the preview, we're going to start with the Big 12. And during the playoff era, the Big 12 hasn't really had any real great success. I think Oklahoma's made it, once? Is that correct? Or have they made it once?
They've made it in 1 year, Oklahoma.
But
got in as a favorite against Clemson and kind of got handled.
Got embarrassed.
Yeah. So of the power conferences, I mean, yeah, they've had really the worst go of it in the playoff era.
The thing about the Big 12, and like we are guys that grew up in Big 10 country, so I think I guess like we have a little more pride as far as like defense goes, which that conference does not. I kind of think that's their problem. Like, they don't play defense. They're not physical enough to hang with teams like Bama or like Clemson or
We're a little
Ohio
more
State
we're
or
a little
Florida
more
State.
old school, so
We have an appreciation for the D,
yeah.
so to speak.
You have to be able to tackle to win big games.
Got to tackle.
You have to be able to tackle.
Notre Dame.
Steele's a Notre Dame fan. He knows this. You have to be able to tackle. It doesn't matter if you can rack up 60 points a game. Like, look.
We'll touch base with the independents
Yeah,
later on.
We'll get to Notre Dame later on. I think they'll probably be thrown into like the ACC, Big Ten, SEC preview. As far as independents, well, yeah, Notre Dame will be previewed, but nobody else that's important that's an independent, I don't think. But anyway, Big 12. I think this year it seems like, and we all have the Phil Steele magazine. I don't get paid to promote this or anything. I just think it's the best magazine on the market. But
Uncle Phil.
yeah, if you guys don't know who Phil Steele is, he's a very, very knowledgeable college football enthusiast, and I don't know what else will be called.
There's some other good magazines out there, Athlon and some other conference-by-conference preview magazines, but his is all-encompassing from A to Z, every team, whether they're title contender or just new to FCS altogether with a two-page breakdown.
I mean,
and the numbers and analytics.
Yeah, like literally, if you didn't know anything about college football and you open this magazine to a team, you could read it in 10 minutes and know everything you need to know about that team, like positional breakdowns, unit breakdowns, coaching staff, the last 10 years, that type of stuff. Very stats packed. There's a lot of good analysis.
Jam-packed with information.
Jam-packed with information. That's what he actually advertises it as. So, yeah, the Big 12, though, this year, it seems like Oklahoma on paper is the clear favored. Behind them, you have Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas, Kansas State. You could probably argue the order of any of those. Oklahoma on paper has the most talent as they've recruited the best in the conference. Kind of interesting that when I was previewing this today that I forgot that when Phil released the magazine, Bob Stoops was still the coach. So everything that's written about Oklahoma in here is as a Bob Stoops football team. Now, Lincoln Riley was the offensive coordinator. He takes over this year, and there's still some continuity there. It'll be the same exact offensive system, but you guys know that with any team, you take the identity of the coach. I don't really know a lot about Lincoln Riley. I mean, this could be – Oklahoma's kind of like a wild card this year to
Came
me.
from Baylor, didn't he?
I don't know if he was there, if he was at
Offensive coordinator there.
East Carolina or something like that. He was at a couple of places where his offenses did really well. And Oklahoma did really well last year under him. I mean, they also had a lot of great players. They lost Joe Mixon, who's a piece of shit. Samaje Perine, They lost who was the D.D. Westbrook, Biletnikoff winner, I believe. So they did lose a couple players. A lot of players. They returned, most importantly, Baker Mayfield and potentially one of the best offensive lines in the country. So they're pretty potent on offense. I question their defense. Last year they were very piss poor on defense. They allowed like 4 or 5 passing touchdowns to Ohio State, who was pretty bad through the air last year. So
it's a funny link between the two, topics that we started with how we have an appreciation for defense, along with the topic of switching coaches to Lincoln Riley, who has an offensive mindset
Right.
at that team, which they were already, comparative to, premier programs across the country, how lackluster they were already on defense. Are they going to slide further down the rankings in terms of defensive production,
Right.
where their offense, loses a bunch of playmakers, but they're so geared towards that offensive mindset in that conference, and specifically with their new head coach?
Right.
Do they give a shit if they give up 40 points a game if they're throwing up 50, 55? Right. So I think that's going to be an interesting transition for Oklahoma. Like you mentioned, they've recruited the best throughout the conference most consistently, so that obviously puts them, miles ahead of the likes of the bottom dwellers like Kansas, Iowa State, Texas Tech, who just lost Mahomes, who we all agree is not going to be good in the NFL, but
He's awful.
NFL scout gurus
Yeah.
by any means. But West Virginia, and then going up the ranks, and I don't think you get to a legitimate contender until you start talking about Texas. With Tom Herman, who I think we all agree, especially Ohio State guys here, who agree that, he's one of the best coaches in the nation, offensive-minded, with what actually Charlie Strong had a couple of good recruiting classes, at Texas, just wasn't able to mold them and put them into, a productive on-field product. So interesting to see what he does there with the young quarterback that they're returning as well. So I think they're going to be the surprise team, and actually my sleeper to actually win the Big 12. A lot of favorite picks are going to be Oklahoma State, TCU. They've got a brutal schedule, as we will probably outline a little bit later, but I don't see how they survive all of their road tests, and they even play Arkansas out of conference, who, it's just not a cupcake game by playing somebody who.
Yeah, TCU has.
Crushed by
they're at Arkansas 2 weeks later. They're at Oklahoma State. They're at Kansas State. They're at Oklahoma. I mean,
they drew a lot of the toughest teams on the road.
Yeah. And the thing is, now, are you actually picking Texas to win the conference?
I am.
Okay.
I am. I think the coaching change, along with the fact that they're going to be geared a little bit more towards offense, and they've got so many offensive playmakers to replace on that side of the ball. They do have the best offensive line in the conference and arguably the country. Week 2 matchup where they come to Ohio State, that's going to be an interesting game within the game when O-line goes versus,
That's OU you're talking about?
Right.
So you're picking OU to win?
No, I'm picking Texas.
Oh, okay,
I'm just giving you the reasons why Oklahoma's not going to win it. I think they're stacked on the line. I think their quarterback's great, but he's kind of a wild card in terms of turnovers, and I think he's going to make one too many in key spots in key games, specifically on the road at Ohio State. That's what I was saying is a game within the game. Is Oklahoma's line versus your guys' line is going to dictate a lot what goes in that game. But I think in the end, you guys are going to probably beat them by 14 to 20 points, to be quite honest. So that out-of-conference loss is going to come into play, I think, when Texas has to go. They've got Maryland week 1, which I think we all agree is not going to be a hard game for them. I think they're going to just cupcake them and then go from there. So, and then Oklahoma State, that Bedlam game usually dictates who's going to come out. And let's not forget, Big 12 has a title game this year, right?
Yeah.
So it's not division by division,
no,
right?
It's
just the top two,
yeah.
right? So I think a lot is going to come down to the winner of that game being in the Bedlam winner being in the conference championship game, and I think that's who's going to be pitted against the Texas.
Okay.
On that.
Yeah, side. I guess I'll give my winner, and we'll get into a little bit more in depth of these teams. I'm going to go with Oklahoma State. I thought about picking Texas. I really did. If TCU had even a couple of these games at home, I actually think I would go with TCU. I like their experience and I like their coaching staff. Their quarterback is a big wild card in Kenny Hill. I don't know what to expect out of him from year to year. This is like his 8th year at college, I think. So I can't go with TCU because of the schedule. I think Oklahoma State, their schedule sets up really nice for them. They've got TCU at home. They have Oklahoma at home. They are at Texas, but I think that's a game they certainly could win. I think Steele's right. I do think the Oklahoma, the Bedlam matchup, I do think that the winner of that game does get into like the top 2 of the conference standings. And then who knows from there? This conference is wide open. Like we said, teams don't really play great defense. I think on any given night, a team like Texas Tech could beat a team like Oklahoma just because. I mean, it's just how it is. So,
right. So you look at Texas's schedule quickly. They do go to USC, which is kind of crazy, in terms of how big of a program that is and how good we anticipate them being as well. They get Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. It is back-to-back weeks. However, they are both at home. One's in Dallas, neutral site game for Oklahoma. And then they have at Baylor, first-year head coach Matt Rule. I think we all agree is a good coach, but year one with a deplorable program and amount of people that went through that program, I think not year one for them. And then at TCU, but then they get Kansas, at West Virginia, and Texas Tech, 2 of 3 at home to finish the year. So even if they went into the last couple of weeks with 1 or 2 losses, I think they can sneak into that Big 12 game championship. Again, not with a divisional breakdown of having to win a division, just be number 1 or number 2.
Yeah.
And with Oklahoma and Oklahoma State playing so late in the year, that loss might be, knocking one of them out with a second or even third loss for probably Oklahoma State or in Oklahoma's whatever I'm trying to say, Oklahoma's schedule with most likely obtaining a loss early on the season against Ohio State.
Yeah, I think if I'm going to give Addison, I'll get to you in a sec. I'll give so I do have Oklahoma State winning the conference this year. Oklahoma's going to be my most overrated team. That's just kind of by default because these other teams aren't rated like super high, so it's kind of hard to say they're overrated. I think I'm just going to go with the fact that I think the Big 12 conference is just not as good as the other conferences, and I think that maybe Oklahoma feels the losses of their 2 stud running backs and D.D. Westbrook more than they think. I'm not sure about that yet, and Oklahoma certainly is talented enough to get to the playoff and win the conference, and most people are going to pick them. I'll just say they're my most overrated team, though. I think from my surprise team, I guess your surprise team is basically Texas since you have them winning anyway, but so that's kind of like a combo for you. But my surprise team is actually going to be Kansas State, and that's because they seem to return a lot of players from last year's team. Bill Snyder is quite possibly the best coach. He's certainly the most experienced because he's like 200 years old, so that really helps them out. And I think K-State's schedule is actually not too bad from what I remember. Let's see, at Oklahoma State, at Texas, they get Oklahoma at home.
3 losses.
Yeah, potentially. I think, though, if you were looking for a team that not a lot of people were going to talk about in this conference, that would be my team to potentially kind of sneak up and take the conference somehow. I think that to do that, there'd have to be a lot of chaos. I don't think Kansas State has a shot at making the playoff. I think they could win it as like a 3-loss team, getting into the championship game and then upsetting somebody. But yeah, so I have Oklahoma State winning. Steele has Texas. Are you going to make it 3 out of 3 for a different team?
Yeah, I actually am. I'm glad that we're all in disagreement here. So I'm actually going to go with I'm going to go with Oklahoma. It's the safe pick. I know. But, I mean, you can't really go wrong with picking Oklahoma in the Big 12. I mean, they do have Baker Mayfield back. Having the stability on the O-line, even with losing the skill guys that they did, I think they recruit enough talent to be able to plug in enough that they'll be good enough on offense, improved enough on defense that,
I agree.
To me, they're the favorite.
Defense, yeah.
Oklahoma State is the most potent offense in the conference this year. I have them number 2.
Okay.
Number 3, I have Texas. Last year they were really young. They're still a young team, but this year they're young with experience. I think the Tom Herman hire was a really good hire. I like the future with him as the coach. We'll see how he does in year number 1, but definitely year number 2 and going forward, I think they're going to be, back to where they were a few years ago.
Interesting about Texas and Tom Herman, he was really good at Houston even that first year, and he was really good in big games. He was really good for Ohio State in big games. one thing we didn't mention about Texas, which I might have been willing to actually go with Texas with you if they didn't hire Tim Beck.
Yeah, that's true. Of course, we got to talk
They
about
hired Tim Beck, who was Ohio State's quarterback coach and one of their co-coordinators the last couple of years. And quite frankly, apparently, according to Urban Meyer, the reason that we were so bad against Clemson. So, I mean, there's a lot of factors for why the offense was as bad as it was at the end of the year. But a lot of people point to Tim Beck. The play calling was really unimaginative. Now, I don't know if Tom Herman.
Hopefully, Tom Herman is going to be the guy calling
the
plays.
Guy, right? Because Urban's more of like the CEO, like Saban, Urban, those guys.
Yeah.
They're definitely more like kind of not sightseers, but like they kind of oversee everything.
Yeah, they just like delegate.
And that's what the best coaches seem to do.
Yeah. Guys like Urban and Saban, they get the best guys and they just let them do their thing.
Yes, and that's smart because then they save energy. They let those guys do their jobs. But I do think Herman probably will have a little bit more of a grasp on everything than Urban did. So I don't know if that will be as much of a factor. So that is interesting to point that out.
That could be more of like a quarterback coach kind of guy.
Yeah, and he's known for being good at that, but I think he sucks.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. Like,
this
isn't ESPN. I don't
like
have to
calling plays.
I don't have to hide about how I feel about guys on this podcast. I mean, we're allowed to say whatever we want, and he's quite frankly awful. So, do you have an overrated team, maybe like a surprise team that could win the conference then, besides like your top two, I guess?
Well, I'll say that I think there's 5 teams that can win this conference. And so I mentioned 3 already, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Texas. I think with a championship game this year, I wouldn't be surprised to see any combination of those 3. Mm-hmm. You could see some weird scenario like the one year where there was a 3-way tie at the top, and it's like whoever's the highest ranked teams goes. Yeah. Some teams that I think could throw a wrench into that whole situation, though, are TCU and Kansas State. I still think they have a shot. I don't think either of those teams are going to finish in the top spot, but they could definitely get into the number 2 spot, and obviously they get in the championship game. TCU is a very experienced team. They bring back a ton from last year. As you mentioned, I don't really like Kenny Hill, but if they can get distance, then they could be a good team.
He's got good arm talent. Is that like a Mel Kiper thing? Like, he can throw the football. He just often throws it to the other team too many times. So,
well, there's a reason we're talking about the Big 12 first, and I think we all can agree that there's not a championship caliber defense from bottom to top in this conference. And with the changes at OU, with the coach, or just, again, with the defensive or lack thereof of the defense throughout the conference, we don't think that there's a team in this conference that can win beat 2 playoff caliber teams back-to-back weeks or what have you in the playoff scenario for a championship. I don't see how Oklahoma's going to go to Ohio State, and even with the revenge factor and Baker Mayfield at the helm and the O-line, I don't see how they go to OSU week 2 and win that marquee game.
Right.
And then you're going to tell me they're going to win the Big 12 and then beat an OSU caliber team, and then an Alabama or a Clemson or another playoff caliber team 2 times. So I just don't see that from anybody in the conference.
We might get a lot of shit from like if this podcast got big enough and like maybe we have like a Big 12 program fan, they'd comment on the channel or something and say how they think we're full of shit, we're just Big 10 homers or something. That's not really the case. It's just we're being honest about this. Let's say
gotta play defense.
I mean, I think Oklahoma State's gonna win the conference. But is anybody out there, even Oklahoma State fans, are you guys really gonna tell me that you're gonna win the conference? Let's say you get into the playoff. Are you really going to beat, like, Florida State and then Alabama back-to-back? And, like, you're going to be like, well, if you make the playoff, anything can happen. No, in my opinion, like we started with this podcast off, BCS era in a 1-game scenario, sure. But you've got to win 2 games. And I don't see any of these teams being good enough, to be honest, to do that.
Right. And so we watch it on a weekly basis. I mean, not from noon till 8 p.m., but there's a game or 2 here and there from week to week where we see it. And the defense and the special teams is just comical.
Yeah.
And someone's rebuttal to that is, well, our offense is that good. Well, just put them up against a real defense and see how the locks get shut down on you.
Just look at Ohio State, Oklahoma last year.
Exactly. So something like to that magnitude where it's just, you're playing, superior athletes and, somebody that's just as fast as you, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and to be
I don't
honest,
see how you're putting up 50+ points
Yeah.
in 2 games against an Alabama type defense, a Clemson type defense. Or,
Yeah.
or
And I
whatnot,
think once you
so.
get to like those elite games, I think coaching matters a lot. And Lincoln Riley, who knows? He could be an amazing coach, but unproven. We don't know shit about him. Mike Gundy, I mean, he's okay.
He's
but
like 50 now.
Two of our
he
conference,
was 40 at one point.
2 of our conference champs that we picked here are first-year head coaches too.
Right.
Are we really expecting those teams to win a national championship? No, and especially when Oklahoma goes to Ohio State, Texas goes to USC out of conference.
Right. We don't expect those teams to win this game.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's unanimous. We just don't think this conference is going to be in play for a national title this year.
Fun to watch, fun to bet.
We're not saying that we don't think any of these teams could make the playoff. We certainly think if you win the Big 12 and there's some chaos, we think they could. But it's been proven in the last couple of years that they seem to be the odd man out. Last year we were talking about 2 Big 10 teams. The year before that we were talking about 2 SEC teams. I mean, are we ever going to be talking about 2 Big 12 teams getting into the playoff?
No.
Okay, let's move on then.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Take the over.
Yeah, take the over when you're betting pretty generally. So we're going to move on now to the Pac-12. This should be a little bit more entertaining to talk about, a little more interesting, except for the Pac-12 South, but maybe not at all, actually. I guess we'll start. Oh, and you know what? Before we get into the Pac-12, I need to give Corey from Denver, since he is the 4th person of kind of hosting this podcast. He had Oklahoma State winning the conference. He had Texas as a possible surprise team, and then he had West Virginia as an overrated team. I didn't know that West Virginia was rated high enough to be considered overrated. But
I've seen him in some top 25.
Okay, so maybe
fair.
he's got a point there. Now,
Yeah.
this is a Virginia Tech fan, and they play week 1, and he kind of doesn't like West Virginia.
It must be
so
some kind of rivalry.
I think it's apparently. So those are his picks, though. We'll get to his picks.
I'll say, well, he said Texas as his surprise team.
Yes.
I didn't really give a surprise team. If I could see Texas being the surprise team that's going to do something on the national stage out of the Big 12, just because I like their talent and I really like Tom Herman.
Mm-hmm.
And, especially since they had a losing record, they've had a rough few years under Charlie Strong, but they have the talent. It's there. It's just
are they an elite program?
Right now.
I mean,
Been for
here's the thing.
5
Like,
years.
when we were kids in the 90s,
Even longer.
the only reason we knew who Texas was because we used to play NCAA 9-9, and we would play with Ricky Williams.
Sup,
But
Ricky?
Texas was like an 8 or 9 win team a long time.
Ricky, big fan of the podcast.
Yes, I think he watches. If they didn't have Vince Young, are we really ever discussing Texas as this blue blood elite program?
No, because
Not really.
Mac Brown passed and or ignored recruiting the
Multiple
quarterback
talent,
positions.
Johnny Manziel, Robert Griffin. He told them both they were going to be corners.
Right. So, I mean, when you make those kind of glaring mistakes in recruiting and at that type of program, I mean, he hit 1 home run with Vince Young, and they had a really good defense.
And what's
that
interesting,
year.
too, is in the 2000s, they were consistently top 3, top 5 in recruiting. They just also were not coached up to their ability.
They couldn't beat Oklahoma for the most part
Right.
in that
Right.
time.
I don't know. Texas fans it's interesting because I think they think of themselves as being on the same level as Alabama.
Well,
and,
there's a lot of
Clemson,
money.
Ohio State. And
There's a lot of money.
They have
It's
the most
huge.
Money. They have the most money.
I mean,
They got the state of Texas.
Yeah.
There's
there's a lot
They
of
should be
teams
better.
there.
And
But
I think we agree that if Tom Herman can do what he did at Houston, what he's with his track record, that could be they could run that conference coming up in a few years. There's potential for a team to really dominate that conference, to come out of it every year, to be in the playoff every year.
the patriarch of the conference just left.
Yes, right.
I mean, there's an opening.
I'm going to throw this out on the podcast. I think there's something more to it. Who just
it was so out of the blue. You don't retire at that time of the year.
right?
It's
And
weird.
I don't know. It's strange. We might. You heard it here in this podcast. I think
Maybe he knew he wasn't going to win.
Yeah, that could be it too. Maybe he just realized that holy shit, my team hasn't tackled for 10
He
years.
saw Tom
so.
Herman coming.
All right, let's get into the
Also,
Pac-12.
don't hit women like Joe Mixon.
Yeah,
There you
that's a good point to make on the
Valid.
podcast. We
Is
definitely.
that what you're?
I wasn't going to say that, but
We're anti hitting women.
anti
I mean,
domestic violence. Yeah.
Were you suggesting that maybe there's more of the Joe Mixon thing?
Oh, I don't know if that could be a part of it. Pete Carroll just suddenly left USC when the Reggie Bush shit started hitting.
Yeah.
So I just think maybe I don't know for sure. Who knows? I could be wrong. Maybe Stoops was just you know what? I did hear a story where his dad died really young because of a heart attack. So maybe Stoops has some health issues that we don't know about. From everything I've ever heard, he seems like a good guy. We're making fun of the Big 12 and stuff, but Stoops is an Ohio guy, so I kind of.
He's
do
been
like
successful. He's made a lot of money,
Yeah.
and he's still able to walk.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're really chasing another national championship.
I think it's kind of interesting that you get your quarterback back, and you are playing at Ohio State, which that is Stoops' home state team that he.
I mean, they're
Like,
like
he doesn't want to be embarrassed there.
That's a good point.
They're
And
even a
honestly,
top 10 team going into the season. Like,
I don't know
they're a
quite
legit
about that
contender.
game, but I kind of think we're just going to end their season right there in week 2. I think we're going to just rip their soul out like we did last year. And I'm usually not super biased when it comes to OSU games. Like, if I think it's going to be a close game or we could lose, I've said that when I've thought we could lose before. But I think, I don't know, whenever we've played a soft team, and that's how I describe Oklahoma, we do not lose.
Think Oregon.
Yeah,
like,
we
when
punish soft teams.
we both thought the same way going into that game. We're just like, this team, like, we're just
soft.
Yeah.
All right, so we were supposed to wrap up the Big 12 like 10 minutes ago, but we're getting to the Pac-12 now. I guess I'll start, and then we can just work our way from Addison to Steele. I think that in the South, as far as that division goes, it's real easy for me. I have USC winning the division. They are incredibly talented. Sam Darnold is potentially the number 1 pick next year in the NFL draft.
Browns.
Yeah, yeah, definitely the Browns. USC, the thing about the South this year is there's really no competition with them, in my opinion. I'm not going to name a surprise team because I don't think there's going to be one ever at any point. If I have to name one for the sake of the pod, I'll say UCLA just because they have Rosen. He can sling the ball. Maybe they could get a few upsets, but, I mean, who are we kidding? I think we all agree unanimously that USC is going to steamroll that division. USC, I do think, is a legitimate national title contender. I'm not going to give my playoff picks yet. I think we should do that later on in the offseason here, but I do think USC is a team that could make the playoff and potentially win the national title. In the North, I actually like Stanford. I'm not real certain about these top 3 teams. I think most people have either Washington or Stanford. I think most people have Washington, but Stanford does get Washington at home in a very pivotal game to where I think that game will decide the division. And I think because Stanford gets it at home, I'm going to just go with them. I like David Shaw as a coach. Not that I don't like Peterson at Washington, but I just like Stanford on the line. I think they have, Phil Steele lists them as the best linebackers and DBs in the conference. Both those units are ranked number 1 in the conference. So I really like Stanford out of the division, and I'm going to go with USC to win the conference. I think that's a pretty overwhelming pick this year. I was going to go with Stanford and get kind of cute and be that guy, but it's hard to go against USC this year for me personally. So those are my winners. We'll get into surprise teams and overrated teams later, but go ahead with your winners of the divisions, the winner of the conference.
All right, well, start in the South. Obviously, I have USC. If you don't have USC out of the South, then you're an idiot. There is no division more lopsided than the Pac-12 South in all of college football. The gap from 1 to 2 here is just enormous. USC is going to win it, by mid-October.
They've already won it.
Yeah,
It's over.
yeah, they've already clinched.
0-0.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course they've got Darnold.
Warriors in 2.
Warriors.
Sorry, Caps fans, but
I mean, they've got the Heisman favorite in Darnold. On offense, they lost a few receivers. They lost their top 2 receivers, but they do bring back Burnett, who was basically the star of the Rose Bowl.
Right.
Defensively, I know their linebackers are good, but there's no point in even comparing them to these other teams in the division. I would say UCLA's after USC, these teams are between UCLA, Utah, Colorado. It's kind of jumbled there. I think the Arizona schools are dog shit.
Yeah, they're really bad.
They're gonna give up probably a shitload of points. They're like Big 12 teams. They give up like 40 points a game. They're completely irrelevant.
What's funny is that we try to act like, we're not like Phil Steele or like these guys that we don't claim to be like super experts or anything, but we do. College football is our sport. I would say all of us, like, that's even Corey from Denver included, that is our number one sport pretty much. NFL is right there pretty much. Like, I know you have a great love for your stupid Patriots, but I think that, as far as like being experts, I don't know anything about the Arizona schools. I didn't even bother reading their team pages because there's just no chance in hell that they're ever going to do anything.
I probably won't watch a game.
Yeah. So, unless like Ohio State played one of them, there's no reason for me to know anything about them. So,
I was going to say Arizona State, they're just funny on defense. Like,
yeah.
I feel like Todd Graham, like their defense is like someone just playing Madden.
Also, something that we hate about Todd Graham is that stupid little headset.
He's got a very stupid.
Stole right out of my mouth.
It's awful.
Thinks he's so cool looking.
Yeah.
He's not.
He's not at all. And then is Rich Rod still at Arizona?
Yeah, they retained him.
Yeah.
Which is a funny word to use.
I mean, can they do better?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah.
So you like USC? You think UCLA is a possible team that
UCLA, Utah, Colorado, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, UCLA is probably the best team there just because last year Rosen got hurt early in the year. Without him, they were anemic running the football. Like they were just terrible.
Well, they didn't have star linebacker Miles Jack to run for them.
Right.
So, I
think they have the most talent though there in that division of anyone who's going to challenge.
Right. Well, let me ask you this: Colorado won that division last year.
True.
Why are we not talking about Colorado?
Buff's big fall off.
Yeah.
I think they're my most overrated team by far in the conference. I think they might win 4 games.
Yeah, they lose a lot on the defensive side of the ball, and that was actually part of their mainstay. I know a lot of people like to talk about their offense, but they had some really, really good corners and safeties last year.
Phil Steele, look at this. Phil Steele got them 10th in the conference on D-line, 9th in linebackers, 10th in special teams. I mean, they
lost their
10th in quarterback. I mean, your most important positions are going to be your defensive players and then your quarterback usually. Now, in the NFL, that's a little more prominent. I think college football, it's not – there's not as much of an emphasis on quarterback play, but – yeah, Colorado lost a lot. I think they caught a lot of good breaks last year. Yeah, they did play better than we all thought they would, than anybody thought they would.
Big time fall off for the Buffs.
Yeah, they're noteworthy because they did win the division, like you said. I kind of forget that already.
Right.
It's funny. Like their D was very underrated. Like people didn't think of Colorado as like a good defense last year, but like they're solid. Like their secondaries was one of the best.
Yeah.
But their D got completely gutted. Like they have 3 returning starters. Like they lost their coordinator Jim Leavitt, who turned that D around like in a hurry. Mm-hmm. He went to Oregon, who's another team that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, we'll talk about Oregon. Yeah. So you like USC? How about the North?
Yeah. Spent way too much time talking.
about this. Yeah.
In the North, is interesting. I think.
Besides the White Walkers.
Yeah, the North is like the opposite of the Pac-12 South. It's a lot more competitive. Washington, Stanford is probably between those two teams. I think Oregon's definitely a team that can win this division also as a surprise team. Most likely it's going to come down to Washington and Stanford, though. We're probably going to be split on those two teams a lot. I'm going to actually go with Washington. One of the reasons that I think Washington is last year going into the year, I kind of doubted Washington a little bit. People were expecting them to make a big jump. Chris Peterson was going to, his second year last year? And
something, third year maybe?
I think it might have been his second or third.
I'll look it up, yeah.
They had been really young before and brought a lot of guys back.
Third year last year.
Yeah, third year last year. So, the right amount of time that, he can have his influence in the program. People were picking them in top 10 and stuff, and I kind of doubted that because that's a big leap from where they had been before.
They won 7 games a year.
Yeah, but he totally proved me wrong there. They exceeded expectations. Obviously,
they played really well.
They're a really good team. I think Peterson as a coach, he gets a lot out of his players. Like they're not going to recruit the same amount of talent as USC, but he gets the most out of his players.
Yeah.
I think Stanford's a really good team, and Washington has to go to Stanford this year.
Friday night.
Yeah, that game is going to determine the division most likely.
Yeah. Washington also has possibly another tricky Friday night game, and that is Week 1 at Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey. In all seriousness, they'll probably beat Rutgers by 50, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Rutgers definitely an improved team this year. I don't know why we're talking about Rutgers all of a sudden. Go ahead. Go on with your.
It can't get any worse, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and just one more team in this division that, since I mentioned Oregon, I think they can contend in the division.
Yeah.
Last year, obviously, like a lot of teams in this conference struggled immensely on defense, just like the Big 12. Oregon, the Arizona schools, they all gave up like 40-plus points a game.
Right.
Pretty embarrassing.
Yeah.
Oregon, this year, they got a new head coach. They brought in, what's his name from South
Willie
Florida?
Taggart. Yeah, and I was going to add that, usually when we talk about changing coaches, that's an unknown to where we might err on the side of like maybe we doubt the team a little bit with like a new coaching change. First year coaches, like they got to put in new systems. A lot of times they have to get players to believe in them. But I think Taggart might be one of the rare ones where I say that I think Oregon might be better off because they'll be tougher. His teams play really physically tough. They're good on defense usually. I don't know if that will translate.
His teams are usually good on defense.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Last year, Oregon was atrocious.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Oregon.
Under Helfrich, they were soft. I see that guy is a really passive human being, and I remember when before Ohio State was going to play Oregon in the national title game, and there was an interview where Urban was sitting next to Helfrich, and they did a joint interview together, and they were answering questions, and Helfrich looked scared, like in awe, like he and his team played like that. I think that's how Oregon was with Chip Kelly. Obviously, he's a good coach, and obviously I think he's more suited for college, and I think Oregon was a very successful program, but I do think that they needed some toughness, and Taggart will bring that. I don't know in the first year
Not
if that
year
translates.
one.
Yeah,
Not
I don't
year
know if
one.
that translates to success in year one, but I do agree. If I didn't give a surprise team, but I think that's an obvious surprise team. I think if a team besides Stanford or Washington was going to win, I wouldn't be that shocked to see Oregon in the Pac-12 title game. So
Toughness is
Steele,
Sounds to me like Steele doesn't believe in Oregon as much this year.
No, toughness is a mentality, and he's only got half a recruiting cycle of his own players to get up there into Eugene. So
We got to mention this about him. If we're talking about toughness and Willie Taggart, he was running the guys so hard in the offseason that they're pissing brown.
Yeah.
So I mean,
he literally
going to the hospital.
He literally almost killed people. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's got to weed out, the weak people.
Well,
So.
Right.
Well, Charlie Strong tried that too.
But I got to mention when I talk about Oregon, my Heisman dark horse. I've been thinking about this the whole offseason. Royce Freeman, yeah. Think about it. 2 years ago, he rushed for 1,800 yards.
Mm-hmm.
This year, their O-line should be a lot better than it was last year. They bring back a bunch of guys. So they should be solid there. Offensively, really, they should be pretty good.
Right.
That depends on Barrington's status, though. Their leading receiver from last year got a DUI recently.
it's that time of year.
Yeah, it's the time of year when you don't want to hear any news about your team.
Tell you what, you might get some good odds on Royce Freeman. Phil Steele has him as a contender, which is outside of the top 11. I think that you could probably get him for something like close to 40-1.
Yeah, exactly. I'm
We'll touch base on
I'm talking about Heisman odds guys who are like 50-1, like a Lamar Jackson type last year.
Yeah. We'll get into all that.
Yeah.
So So you like Washington to win the North?
Yeah, I go Washington, Stanford, Oregon. I think those three teams can win it.
Who do you think takes the Pac-12?
I think it's USC.
Okay.
I probably think it's closer than anyone else between USC and Washington.
Oh, I think
the thing about Washington.
I almost picked Stanford to win the conference. I think USC is definitely the most talented team, but Stanford plays USC really well. I think Washington definitely proved that they're good enough to play with. I think they're certainly
Washington also they're the most experienced team in the conference this year. They've gotten more experienced each of the past 2 seasons. For a team like them that's not going to recruit as well as USC, that helps to close that gap a little bit, I'd say. USC, the elite programs, teams that recruit like USC, Ohio State, Alabama, they don't really need the experience that much. I mean, Ohio State and Alabama were both some of the least experienced teams in the country.
Right. I will throw this out there, though. What helps those teams clearly is talent, but the coaches are elite. And that's the thing with USC is, Steele, we've talked about this before. You're a Notre Dame fan. You hate USC naturally. Clay Helton versus
I was
Dave Shaw, Clay Helton versus
super
Chris
pleased with the
Peterson.
Clay Helton retention.
I mean,
Yeah, the
I
two
think
best.
that could be the thing that hurts them. And obviously, once they put Darnold in, they played really well. Maybe they were so talented that makes up for Helton. But like when I watched some games, I felt like they were getting out coached, but their talent kind of trumped that. And I think if you play a team that's kind of close in talent, that could end up burning them. So that's all the people that watch this podcast.
Think if they either of our teams from the north gets in plays USC, either of them has a big coaching.
Yeah, for sure. So Steele, why don't you go ahead, man? Both divisions.
Won't waste any time. South belongs to USC. Nobody's gonna contend with that.
There's no reason to think anybody.
Right. So we've hit on that. The North, I've got another sleeper and wild card pick to win the North, which neither of you made one mention of.
Pirate.
And that's the
Clearly.
Pirate.
You love the Pirate.
I love the Pirate. My guy up at Washington State, he's going to be taking the Cougars. He's got first 5 games are all at home. Second most experienced team in the Pac. Mike Leach is going to, I believe, contend, if not win, the North. I think you're going to see a little regression from how well Washington did last year. I think that's only natural, especially from a program that's not used to that, sustaining that success year after year after year.
Sure.
Stanford, well-coached program, but I think they always find a way to lose a game. And I don't mean that in terms of like fumbling a game away or whatnot, but just like going to Northwestern or like an early kickoff or, something like really random where you expect them to dominate. Where it's
like they find a game where they just don't show up offensively.
Right. And they're just like, hey, it's okay. We lose 14-10. We're, it's no big deal. Well, I think that's going to kind of find their way to bite them this season specifically. Touching on Oregon, where you guys have mentioned Willie Taggart, first-year coach. I think he's a good coach. I think he was probably one of the best available out there, that at least how big Oregon could land, transitioning from Helfrich and Chip Kelly and that offensive style and go and speed to him.
Yeah, at least offensively, they keep the same style, you know, so they don't have to the personnel works. Right.
So how Nick was trying to touch base on how they were going to try to transition into a more mentally tough team. And I think that takes time. I don't think you build that in one off season. I could be wrong, but I don't think they got the talent just sitting there, like on the defensive line or anything like that.
No.
So you look at Washington State's schedule. They get. I was just looking at this. They start 5 games at home, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. They also get Washington, and the Apple Cup is naturally at the end of the year. That is at Washington. They get Stanford at home. They get USC at home. So I think they have a very manageable schedule. Oregon is on the road, but then they come back with 3 straight very winnable games at Cal, Colorado, and at Arizona. So even if they somehow stumble at Oregon or somehow lose back-to-back games, USC and Oregon, I think the North is still very winnable for them with that at Washington game at the end of the year. So their experience, and then you were talking Heisman contenders, Luke Falk there is going to put up gobs of numbers. They return 9 starters on offense. They're just a well-oiled machine. Mike Leach finds ways to win. He goes for it on 4th down, probably more than any coach in the nation. You can check me on that, but
they don't punt.
but I'm pretty confident he's in the top 3.
Yeah, they don't punt.
So, not having a punter on their team helps them because they just put another athlete.
I don't think he practices special teams.
Right.
I mean, there's a punter listed, but I guarantee you. Oh yeah.
What's his name?
No, it says right here. He was 2 starts as a wide receiver. So he literally. I literally was going to say as a joke that he probably was recruited as a receiver.
So but
he actually is.
That's my guy, Mike Leach. Again, Phil Steele and a lot of the pros and experts are picking them to finish 3rd or 4th. I think with the schedule, if they get off to a decent start, they do play Boise State out of conference, which I believe they lost to last year or maybe 2 years ago.
Last year they did.
They lost year. Yeah. So maybe a little revenge factor there for them. But if Washington State can put a little bit more on the defensive side than what they did last year, I think what their schedule and their quarterback play, I think they're going to win the North.
Yeah, I agree that I think.
And then probably get stomped by USC in the Pac-12.
So you have USC winning the Pac-12.
Yeah, absolutely. USC by probably 28 points in the championship game.
What happened?
We're good. I thought my computer freaked out.
Do you have Washington State winning?
Yes. Yeah, I think they're going to win the
And
North.
the thing about Washington State is, I think I agree with you. I think the schedule is pretty manageable. I certainly think Leach finds a way to get guys open. I think they can.
And there's always that team that turns it on. USC last year,
Yeah.
what did they start? 0-3, 1-3, 1-4,
Yeah.
whatever the hell it was. They ended up winning like 7-8 straight games,
Right.
and everyone's like, well, if they're a playoff team now.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that Washington State can make the playoff.
No,
I just
you're
think,
talking about Pac-12 contender.
I just think the way their schedule sets up, I think they have a opportunity to win the North, which is irrelevant because whoever comes out of the North, I think, loses by 14, 21 points in the Pac-12 title game. USC, who I believe will sneak in.
I think the thing I was going to mention Washington State. The only reason I don't mention them as a serious contender in the North is I worry about their play on the line. I remember reading about them. I think they are a little weaker on both lines, and I think that hurts them against teams like Stanford and Washington. They're both, I think, quite good on the line from what I recall. I didn't look at the unit rankings.
Yeah, they're in the second half.
Yeah,
I mean, 7.
Washington State plays at Utah also. That's a team that's always good on the D-line.
Utah, I tell you what, we didn't mention a single word about Utah
No, we
either, and that's a really well-coached football team. They're going to be really good on defense. I think, to be honest,
they're completely going to a different scheme offensively, which
I think that's going to be tricky for them, and they have a really tough schedule. If
think.
Utah didn't have,
Except for their offense is going to be horrendous.
yeah,
exactly. Trying to change the scheme to like
right. And if Utah didn't have such a tough schedule, they play, and this isn't obviously BYU is not a conference team, but they got to play at BYU, at USC, at Oregon, at Washington.
Right?
Yeah. Utah, if it wasn't a scheme change, if their schedule wasn't too tough, I would like them as a surprise team out of the South. But there's just too much going on with the changing system,
and USC
with the
too
schedule. Right, USC will beat the hell out of them. So, yeah, Washington State out of the North. That's your winner. All right, do we have? Did we go over overrated teams in the South here? I think. I don't really know if I have an overrated team.
It's hard to.
The South is done.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let me give Corey's
Yeah.
picks from the Pac-12. He has USC winning the South. Smart man. He has Stanford winning the North. And then he has USC winning the conference overall. His surprise team is Oregon, as is Addison and I, as we said.
Corey's a big David Shaw fan.
He is. His overrated team is Washington. He says he's not a believer this year. He thinks that kind of wears off.
I said you guys don't believe like I did. I got proven wrong last year. So.
Yeah. Well, that was last year.
I think it's sustainability.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a flash in the pan. In terms of
they lost some key guys. There's no doubt. Like Buda Baker is a player that I really liked last year. He was like their playmaker on
good coach, good on the line, return their
well,
quarterback.
yeah, they lost some key guys, but they still have a lot of experience.
Yeah,
that's why I still like them to not, fall off the radar after having a great season.
All right, let me ask you guys this then. I think we all four would agree that USC is a national title contender, right? They're a legitimate national title contender.
I think the winner of this conference, yeah.
So
And
you think
that's most likely USC.
You think Washington is a national title contender?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't.
No, because they have to beat USC and then 2 playoff
I don't think
games,
Stanford.
which
is
I
either.
only watched.
I
like we
we're
thought
a
it
little
was.
more hard- yeah, we're a
I'm
little more-
saying getting into the playoff.
Okay.
Okay, but I'm talking about can win the national title.
No.
I don't think
One
Stanford
team.
or Washington can. I think USC is the only team.
Yeah,
in the Pac-12 that can.
I'll agree with that. I'll agree.
Do we think? Does Corey think that? You think, or does he think
He
Stanford?
better think that.
I don't think he thinks Stanford can win that.
I don't think so.
So we've done
Right.
2 conference previews tonight, and we think out of both conferences we have one team that we think can win the title. So we have USC in there as a possible national title team. I think we probably all have USC in the playoff. Then we're not going to give our legitimate official playoff picks yet.
I don't think so.
But, I mean, I think USC is definitely a team that we have in there. And it's kind of hard to not have them in there with them playing in the South. With
Road
the
game
talent
at
level.
Notre Dame.
Just throwing that out there.
Just throwing that out there. It might be a head-to-head tiebreaker for the committee.
We'll get to Notre Dame eventually.
No rush. Trust me, there's no rush.
I think, was there anything else we were going to cover tonight? Do we want to get into, like, Heisman stuff? Or do we... we've got the Pac-12, we've got the Big 12. That's all we're going to cover. Okay.
It's still July.
So, yeah, I mean, there's your breakdown, I guess. Sorry for, like, California fans that we didn't mention your team, but they're just not good.
Football next month.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Rams and Oregon State for hosting us in the new stadium.
Yes, we will be traveling to Denver to visit
4 columns.
with
specifically.
Yes, we're going to be traveling to Denver to visit Corey from Denver, the fourth person of the SNS podcast. We will be traveling to Fort Collins to see Colorado State play in their new stadium versus Oregon State.
First game of college football season.
We're that big of college football nerds that we are traveling to Colorado from Columbus, Ohio to go see Colorado State play Oregon State.
I'm pumped for this game. We didn't even talk about Oregon State, and we're going to see them play.
Well, that's because we're going to be rooting for the Rams. Clearly. You might not.
Yeah, well,
I was going to say,
no Ram backing.
We're going to be the away team. Are we going to be wearing Ohio State jerseys at this game?
I plan on wearing Ohio State gear at this game.
No.
Notre Dame.
No.
Steele, you gotta wear some Notre Dame gear at this game.
There's gonna be no third party gear.
I'm gonna bring a JT for Heisman sign, get on TV with it.
That's probably what we'll be talking
that
about.
Probably, honestly, that probably will be shown. Yeah,
it probably would be.
shown.
Look at this idiot.
You bring a random sign to a game like that? Yeah.
All right, so so there's your Pac-12
Yeah.
and Big 12 conference breakdowns. Just to summarize, we think USC is pretty much the only legitimate national title contender. We seem to think that there are a few teams that can win the Pac-12 North. Big 12,
It's a competitive conference.
Yeah, Big 12 is competitive if you want to talk about, like, I don't know.
Mediocrity.
Yeah, right. Look, Big 12 fans, I'm sorry, but until we're proven wrong, do we have a reason to say otherwise? We don't. So, that'll do it for the first episode of the Sproles and Steele podcast. We look forward to probably doing this. In season, we'll pretty much hit it every week. And I think in the off season here, I don't think we have a set schedule. We'll probably try to hit it every, I don't know, maybe bi-weekly or something like that.
Yeah.
Like cover the conferences. We'll get into
Countdown to the new
We'll
season.
get into like
Tell us
some
what you
Heisman
guys
stuff.
want to hear.
Yeah. If you guys
Betting previews, Heisman.
Right.
We'll get into betting stuff.
Yeah, once we get into season, that's all we do. Yeah, I got like that itch, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So until next time, guys.
Yep. We're rock bottom right now for the sports calendar. This is rock bottom. The mid-July week,
Oh, it's bad right now. Like there's literally nothing on.
But
Shout out, Slinky.
Oh shit! You know what? I totally forgot. I was just gonna edit out because I pretty much did like my outro, but I forgot the roommate gave picks for the Big 12. And
Oh.
I got to give those just real quick. The roommate has UCLA winning the South.
I said if you don't pick USC,
yeah,
you're
I
an
know. She has Washington winning the North, and then she has Washington winning the conference. So at least she got something maybe right.
Why did she pick UCLA? Did she like their jerseys or something?
I think, to be quite frank, she doesn't know anything about anything. So she just went with UCLA because she's
rolling the dice.
She just doesn't like Southern
Which we
Cal.
all like to do.
What about the Big 12?
Big 12, she went with Texas, I believe, actually. And I asked her why, and she said, I don't know, I just like them. So astute analysis from the roommate.
Good.
Until next time, guys, we will see you soon for I think we'll do all in one. We'll do the ACC, Big Ten, and the SEC breakdown with Notre Dame.
That's going to be the longest
That
podcast ever.
That
It's
will
gonna
be
be a marathon.
I will keep it as hopefully condensed as possible.
We don't have to talk about the Big Ten.
But
Big Ten might need to have its own.
Okay, we'll figure it out.
Shoot
We'll
me.
figure it out.
Shoot.
Shit.
We'll throw you in there too.
Why do you
We'll
think
lump
Phil
you in
Steele
the Big
puts
Ten.
Notre Dame on the Big Ten magazine? Yeah,
Awesome.
just saying.
Until next time.
Yeah. Until next time. All right, I'll edit out the rest of this. So. All right.
Along with
Well, minus all the editing. Yeah,
Awesome.
just saying.
Until next time.
Yeah.